Omar Khayyam, a mathematician, an astronomer, and a poet of the 11th century, who wrote not just verses, but a survival manual for a world filled with expectations and fear. His Rubaiyat is a guide to radical freedom, written when the very concept of freedom was the most expensive thing one could possess. 1,000 years have passed, yet his voice still strikes the raw nerve of modern humans, who have forgotten that they are alive. The world is a chessboard. Day and night are the players, and we are the pieces in their firm hand. A move is played, and we are put back in the box, and silence returns in the eternal end. We live in a world where the sense of control is the most precious illusion. It seems to us that we are building careers and planning the future, but in reality, we are merely pawns on a cosmic chessboard. Every move we make is determined not only by our desires, but by invisible, historical forces. These forces, like day and night, play arbitrary games with us that we cannot understand. We waste priceless attention trying to predict the next move of global players. In the end, every move finishes the same way. The piece is sent to the box. This realization lifts the weight of excessive ambition, but imposes a new responsibility. Our biological clock runs in a state of constant tension, mirroring societal anxiety. Every cell of our body screams about the need to hurry, because time is passing. We constantly postpone life for later, waiting for ideal conditions. When I finish this project, when I pay off the loans, when the children grow up. This waiting turns our body into a machine, working for exhaustion, not for joy. The stress, caused by a constant sense of lack, erodes the system from within. The irony is that later never arrives, because its place is always taken by a new later. Modern life has turned into a financial carousel, where the speed of motion is determined by the size of the debt. Our salaries are merely short breaks between the necessity to pay again for a comfort that never brings peace. We exchange our only irrevocable time for numbers in a banking app. This dependency breeds a deep existential paralysis, where we cannot free ourselves from work we hate. We constantly fix our gaze on future payments, completely ignoring the richness of the present moment. It is this feeling of constant financial suffocation that pushes us toward the search for true, ancient silence. What you know, you speak, and what you do not know about that, you remain silent for an eternity. But do we know much? Perhaps, like a lamb, we only listen to your call. The psychological fatigue of the modern world arises not from work, but from the need to constantly simulate knowledge. We feel the pressure to have an opinion on everything, from politics to artificial intelligence. This intellectual noise displaces the true, deep understanding that Khayyam speaks of. We are losing the capacity for productive silence, where wisdom is born, not a comment. Our mental field is overloaded with information waste, which we mistake for knowledge. We talk a lot, but we say nothing important about ourselves. We build our lives leaning on complex, carefully thought out 5-year plans. Creating such an architecture of the future gives us a sense of security, which is nothing more than a neurosis. This illusion of control crumbles into dust from a single unforeseen event, a pandemic, a war, or simply the loss of a job. Khayyam teaches us that the best plans are designed by fate, and we are merely observers of their execution. Excessive detailing of the future is a hidden form of fear of the unknown, not a wise strategy. Our personal self gradually dissolves in the social echo chamber of expectations. We choose professions, partners, and even hobbies based on what we think will bring approval. Life turns into a performance where the main goal is to receive applause from an audience who, by the way, are just as worried about their own roles. The loss of one's own authenticity becomes the highest price for a ghost-like social integration. We forget that no one but us will live our life. When the curtain closes, we believe that our problems are unique, and this prevents us from learning from the experience of our ancestors. Our history is cyclical. We repeat financial crises, social conflicts, and personal mistakes. Every era considers itself the pinnacle of development. But human hearts are always tormented by the same questions. We are too busy creating the new to study the old and find answers there. Khayyam, living 1,000 years ago, already saw this endless cycle of suffering and hope. This is the line that hits the nerve. If all this has happened before, why have we still not learned silence? We fear silence more than chaos. Therefore we constantly fill the space with sounds and screens. In the silence, true existential anxiety catches up with us, signaling a lost connection with ourselves. This anxiety is a direct consequence of neglecting our own needs for the sake of external demands. We refuse internal dialogue because it requires honesty and decisive change. The artificial noise of modern civilization is a blanket under which we hide our true, dissatisfied self. We waste emotional energy maintaining toxic or simply insignificant connections that suck out our life force. Out of fear of loneliness, we agree to the presence of those who do not understand us and do not value us. Khayyam calls for a radical filtering of our surroundings, leaving room only for true intimacy. The quality of our connections is directly proportional to the quality of our inner world. Excessive social activity is often a mask, hiding a deep inner emptiness. Drink, for you know not if you are here tomorrow or not. Pour the glass, while fate itself drinks, for you are only for a time, and that time passes quickly. There comes a moment when we finally pause and look back. In this review, we see how quickly the time dedicated to others' goals has vanished. This pause is not a luxury, but a critical need for mental survival. The realization of life's fleeting nature should be a stimulus, not a reason for panic. We must stop to stop being a function and become a human. Once again, the greatest myth of modernity is that life is a rehearsal. We behave as if the true beginning will happen after achieving a certain goal or level of wealth. This mentality of eternal waiting steals from us the only thing we have, the present. We constantly sacrifice the now for a hypothetical future, which, most likely, will demand even greater sacrifices. We must finally admit that we are already on the stage. Now comes the most powerful part. Khayyam forces us to look at our own fate. There is no need to solve the mysteries of words, for our fates are but a whimsical veil. What is destined for us will not be changed by our longing. For those who appreciate quality literature, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam is the essential classic for your shelf. This collection is perfect both for your personal library and as a valuable gift. Don't miss the opportunity. Order your edition now. The direct purchase link is located below the video. Khayyam offers a paradoxical vision of fate and freedom. He acknowledges that many aspects of our lives are already determined by cosmic law and the frames of history. But within this rigid framework, there remains a tiny gap for personal choice, and it is this choice that defines the quality of our life. This freedom lies not in changing the external world, but in choosing our attitude toward it. We cannot control when we will be put in the box, but we can decide how we will play our move. The idea of absolute financial or social security is the biggest trap, forcing us to overpay with our lives. We work overtime to secure a house that could burn, or a position that could be eliminated. True security lies in inner resilience, not in external attributes of wealth. He who needs less is more protected than he who has much, but constantly fears losing it. We must undermine modern metrics of success, which are measured only by accumulation and status. These external indicators are a source of constant anxiety, because they always demand more. Success, according to Khayyam, is inner harmony, the ability to enjoy the moment, and honesty before oneself. It is a transition from the quantity of possessions to the quality of experiences. The world is absolutely indifferent to our personal schedule and our deadlines. The cosmic indifference that Khayyam speaks of is shocking, but it is a necessary truth. Realizing our own insignificance in the scale of the universe should free us from the excessive importance of our own problems. This is not a reason for despair, but an invitation to live lightly, without overloading ourselves with responsibility for what we cannot control. This view of cosmic coldness obliges us to return to what is within our power. Now comes the strongest part. If the universe is indifferent, then only we are responsible for giving meaning to our existence. We must become our own only witness and judge. Radical personal ownership over one's life begins with the refusal to seek external approval. It means that we ourselves set the ethical and life standards without waiting for praise or punishment from society. The knowledge that Khayyam gives is a burden that is impossible to refuse. Once you have seen it, it is like an epiphany. You see the mechanism of the world, and all the former ease of ignorance vanishes. Life becomes more transparent, but also more demanding of honesty. The realization that we are all only for a time requires us to live this time consciously, and not in a lethargic sleep. We owe it to ourselves when we constantly say yes while feeling no. Psychological debt accumulates through the violation of inner integrity, leading to chronic fatigue. Khayyam calls for an inner revolution, to refuse obligations that do not serve our soul. Healthy boundaries are the most important philosophical tool for protecting time. Excessive planning is actually a luxury for those rich in time, but we are all poor in it. We create detailed maps, while life demands improvisation and flexibility. We try to lock time in a cage, though its nature is to flow like water. Khayyam calls to free the future from our tyranny of expectations. The contrast between office chaos, filled with endless calls, and ancient silence is striking. Antique silence was a space for thinking, but modern silence is a place we fear. To break out of the circle of anxiety, we need to consciously return to this ancient, healing pause. True wealth is measured not by a bank account, but by the quality of our attention. Inner economy lies in the wise management of energy, peace, and time. We must invest in inner capital, which cannot be confiscated or devalued. If we do not control our attention, we become slaves to external stimuli and demands. Khayyam suggests we establish our own inner scale of measurement. We no longer need to measure ourselves against social scales or the achievements of colleagues. We must evaluate each day by how faithful it was to our personal meaning. This inner metric frees us from the constant chase and grants true self-respect. When your fate is already so bitter, then smile, even in the bitter moment, for tomorrow is a mist. The past is an empty shadow, and now is the wine that is sweet only now. This is the line that strikes the nerve, and now is the wine that is sweet only now. This philosophy is Khayyam's direct command to enjoy, but not in the sense of hedonism, but in the sense of presence. We need to stop viewing the present as a bridge to a better future, and perceive it as a self-sufficient island. All the beauty and wisdom of the world are concentrated in this fleeting now. If life is so short and dangerous, then the search and creation of joy becomes not just a desire, but an ethical responsibility. We are obligated to seek beauty and meaning, to resist the general chaos and pointlessness. Joy is not a random bonus, but a conscious act of resistance against non-existence. The most difficult philosophical exercise is to define the concept of enough for oneself. Modern society constantly programs us for more, but this more only increases anxiety. Liberation comes when we realize that our enough has already been reached, and we can exit the race. To achieve this final wisdom, we need a practical step. The practice of presence that Khayyam speaks of is not meditation, but a conscious feeling of the material world. It is the enjoyment of bread, wine, light, and warmth. We must ground ourselves through the senses to escape the captivity of mental constructs. This is a simple but powerful way to return your attention to the reality that is happening right now. Khayyam gives us a lesson in parting and accepting impermanence, precisely because everything passes. Our youth, our relationships, our days, they become priceless. The beauty of life lies in its fragility. We must value the moment, because it will never be repeated. Time is the only non-renewable resource, and we must treat it as sacred capital. Every minute spent on others' goals or on empty waiting is a theft from oneself. Khayyam's wisdom demands a strict accounting of our time expenditures. True psychological freedom lies in the distance between the stimulus and our reaction. This distance is created by the inner silence, about which he wrote so much. We cannot control what happens, but we can control how we perceive it and respond. Khayyam leaves us with the thought that if the end is silence, then life should be a melody. The lesson we must learn is that living now is not a luxury, but a duty to oneself. The question we must ask ourselves today: what am I postponing for later that I can enjoy right now? And a simple step: take 1 hour for yourself today and dedicate it to something beautiful that brings you no money,